in this time for people to go to a rabbi if there was a dispute about money, right? Jesus would have been considered a rabbi, a Jewish teacher, right? And so evidently, this guy's the younger brother because the older brother would have been in charge of all the money. And it was up to the oldest brother, or the Behor, that would have been like the title given to them. The Behor would have the charge of all the money, and he had the authority to divide the inheritance. And so typically when there was a younger sibling who was typically a younger son or brother, they would go to the rabbi and ask for some like legal assistance, or they wanted somebody to side with them, right? Because this guy really wanted justice. That is what he wanted, justice. I think we all want justice, right? We want somebody to justify us, right? That's what we want. We want justice for ourselves, right?
Justice for justice.
And so there's this author, his name is Leslie Newbegin, and he says, our problem, as seen in the light of the gospel, is that each of us overestimates what is due him compared to what is due his neighbor. That is very, very easy to do, right? But the attitude of a Christian should be, right? In 1 Corinthians 6:7, it says the very fact that you have lawsuits among you means that you've been completely defeated already. Right. Why not rather be wronged? Why not rather be cheated? Proverbs 19:11 says, a person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. This is really hard. This is the concept that Jesus is talking about, turning the other cheek, right? Ask when it is, give when it is asked of you. Or if someone, takes your cloak, give them your tunic as well, right? Like these concepts, going the extra mile. Right. These are the concepts of Christianity, and these are the things that make Christianity really hard.
Totally.
So Jesus replies to this guy, man, who appointed me judge and arbiter between you? Then he said to him, watch out. Be on your guard against all kinds of greed. Life does not consist in an abundance of possessions.
So good.
Right? So he's like, be on the lookout against all kinds of greed.
Right.
All right? Look out for the greed. There's a passage in Ephesians that's always stuck out to me. We're going to look at that. Because this guy's like saying, all I want is my fair share. I just want what's coming to me. Right? I don't know if you've ever seen the Charlie Brown Christmas special. When Sally is like, I want this from Santa, and you know what? Just give me cash. Santa, just bring me cash. And Charlie Brown is offended. Sally's like, I just want my fair share. The younger sibling that we were hearing about, he just wants his fair share, right? But Jesus is telling us to be on the lookout for greed. I'll get to Ephesians in a second. Sorry about that. But it's this word, right? Greed. In the Greek, it's this word. It's not like I want a bunch of money, right? Or I want a bunch of stuff necessarily. But it's an insatiable desire, one that it can't be satisfied. So here it is in Ephesians 4:19. It says they became callous and gave themselves over to promiscuity for the practice of every kind of impurity with a desire for more and more. It's that same word. The greed of the material possessions, the greed of the material possessions that Jesus is talking about, it's the same word Paul's talking about in Ephesians, about this desire for more and more that cannot be quenched.
That's interesting.
And I think we in the church here we take sexual desire and sexual temptation very seriously. But I don't think we take the temptation of our greed nearly as seriously as we should.
That's a good point.
And then he told them this parable, right? We've been in the parables. Today, I've been blessed with the opportunity to share one of the parables with you that's coming up here. So a parable, right? A parable is something that is laid alongside, right? Like it's kind of like where we get the word parallel, right? So, but a parable is laid alongside. So then you get this story of this guy where Jesus is telling him, don't be greedy, don't be doing the things that are going to separate you from your family. Because there's nothing like money to create a family rift.
Seriously.
Right? I'm a part of a family where when my grandmother died, one of my dad's brothers was given the entire estate. Right? And then he went and decided that he was going to share it with his brothers. So we had this big party, and he shares it with all of his brothers, and then he falls on hard times, and he goes and asks his brothers for the money back. And now he's hard-hearted, and there's a rift in my family because he's saying that his brothers betrayed him. But the money they had already spent the money, and these are the kind of things that are rifts that when we hold on to our money now.
Yeah.
Like my dad has four brothers, so two of the brothers gave him the money back. My dad being one of them. Shout out, Dad. Right?
Yeah.
And then the other, but the other ones were like, I'm sorry, I've already spent the money. And now there's this huge rift in my family, right? And so I see how this works. And Jesus is warning them against what can happen when you allow money to separate you from other people. So he lays this parable down alongside this real world example. And here we get the rich fool. The ground of a certain man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. He said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and build bigger ones, and I will store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Eat, drink, and be merry. Sounds reasonable, right? Like, if you shared this with anybody and took this out of the Bible context, right, and just shared this, like anybody in my family, if I shared this with them, just that passage, they'd be like, well, yeah, that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? Well, all this guy is doing is what the banks do. You guys familiar with this sign, the FDIC? Does anybody know what this means? Right, the FDIC means it's when you're a member, when the bank is a part of the FDIC, it says that you can have a bank account that has $250,000 in it, right? And once you have an account with $250,000 in it, you have to have another account. And every time you do that, you have to have multiple accounts, right? And so that's all this guy is doing. He's just getting more accounts to put all of his surplus in, right? But in the Middle East, right, everybody's business is everybody's business, right? It is a very tight-knit community. But we have a situation here where this guy is saying, I'll do this. I'll say to myself, I'll do this. You know what? You should do this. And these are the things he's saying to himself. And then I'm just going to chill. Eat, drink, and be merry, right? But he only asks himself, right? Because it's his after all, right? And that's fair. Yeah. But what happens?
Okay.
Wealth causes us to withdraw. This is for Kyle.
Yeah. I'm locked in now.
He's paying attention. Lord of the Rings reference, he's paying attention.
All right.
All right, but you got the Gollum, right? The Gollum allowed his greed for this one ring to dominate and destroy his life. He isolated himself, right? And it split his personality. It turned him into a monster, right? And this is what can happen. Jeremiah says, the heart's deceitful above all things and beyond cure. Who can understand it? Proverbs 3:5-7 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and shun evil. Like, these are the passages that warn us against ourselves. Warn us about what we can become when we don't have those other people in our lives. And what can happen is we can get arrogant thinking, well, I have more money than him, or I must be much better at my finances than him, or I have a better job than that person, or, they're just irresponsible with their money, and therefore I know better. But we need people in our lives, regardless of where we stand financially.
Yeah.
Because money divides us. Jesus came, Jesus talks about, he came to divide family, right? Father against son, and mother against mother-in-law against daughter-in-law, and these things, right? But he also came to unify us and bring us together and to heal relationships, right? But unfortunately, we have this situation where we cling so tightly to money. Money is the only God in the Bible that Jesus calls out by name.
Right.
Because it's a God. It's something we worship. It's something we prioritize. It's something that we allow our lives to revolve around.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you a little bit about my relationship with money. Okay? When I was a kid, I grew up in a family, like my grandfather, for generations, were business owners. All right? All the way back to my grandfather's grandfather. And so my family was always pretty well off. I never needed or wanted for anything. So I became very materialistic as a kid. Right? Getting to like junior high school and always had to have like the newest sneakers, like super expensive jeans. We literally wore pajama bottoms that cost $50 and they had like a road sign on the butt. And so
Yes.
I just thought like this is what was cool. This is what I saw around me, and this is what I wanted to imitate. I was big into hip hop, so I would watch rap videos. Not knowing these guys were renting these cars and these chains that they were having in the videos.
Right.
But I just thought, this is what I want. This is the kind of stuff that I want.
Yeah.
Then, I got a little older, and I learned, I got a job. And I saw, okay, I have to earn, I had to start earning my own money, paying for my own clothes. And then I got involved in this thing called network marketing. Where you go and you get a group of people, and then they go get a group of people, and then they go get a group of people, and you get rich. Maybe you're familiar with these concepts. So also known as a pyramid scheme. So I got involved in that, but what they would encourage you to do is go to places like expensive neighborhoods, right, and look at these houses. Go to the dealerships and look at Mercedes and Bentleys and Rolls Royces to kind of like motivate you. Because money can be a great motivator. And that fed that part of me, that greed, that insatiable desire, that fed that. But I didn't really see anything wrong with it because, a lot of these guys went to church. A lot of these guys, they were good. They seemed like good people. They seemed to be, they would give money to charity and things like that. And so that kind of led me even to seek God. So this is before I became a Christian. Then in college, when I was 19, I found this church. And I saw, wow, I don't need all that. I don't need to drive a Bentley. I don't even need to wear brand new clothes. I can go to the thrift store. I don't, I kind of got to that point, right? Where I shunned that when I saw people doing that. But then I was in my 30s, and my dad and I are having dinner together, and he's like, son, I want to tell you about something. There's a guy I work with who, his niece has a situation where she's come into a lot of money, and because of the way in which she got it, the courts are making her distribute this money. And and they want to give it to responsible people. And so you're one of the most responsible people I know, so I want you to be a part of this. And so I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? And so I go and I meet with this woman, and there's a contract that I sign, and there's the possibility that I'm going to get millions of dollars to be responsible for. And I'm like, is this for real? So then I start looking at the world differently. I go to work, and I act like I don't need to be there. I'm in relationships with people and interacting with people, and I'm feeling like, oh, you don't even know what's about to go down. You know what? I drive through neighborhoods, and I think I could buy that house, that house, that house, that house. I go to the auto show in Detroit, right? And I'm looking at all the brand new cars, and I'm like, oh, I could buy any one of these cars. Like, those are the kind of things I was thinking about. But the thing that really bothered me was I was in training for ministry at the time. And I would go to the ministry training, and I noticed that my posture had changed. I had allowed the potential of me having all this money change who I was, change my humility, change who I was, and change how I interacted with my brothers and sisters, change the amount of respect I had for the leaders in the church, because I thought I was something. It all came to nothing. Hopefully you all know that. But you know, I drive a 15-year-old Honda Fit and share it with my wife. So if that tells you anything. But that's my relationship with money. And so I can relate to this guy because I watched myself, and had I not been careful, I could have easily turned into Schmiegel, the golem. So even now though, right, I might not be seeking big houses and fancy cars and a closet full of Air Jordans, okay? But I have to make sure, is my end game to eat, drink, relax, and enjoy myself?
Right.
You know, so I think about things like going on vacation. I like going on vacation. But what does my soul crave? Does anybody ever come back from vacation and you feel like I need a vacation from my vacation?
Seriously.
Well, I've realized that sitting on the beach eating fancy food is not what my soul craves.
Right.
I need two things. I need rest and I need Jesus. Because it's not food and rest, it's God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've realized, like, even today before coming to church, my favorite time of the day is when I just sit and I'm quiet with God. I sat there and all of a sudden, peace and joy rested in my heart. Because I was just sitting there quiet with God. It wasn't because somebody like wrote me a fat check, you know, or somebody gave me like my favorite dessert. It was because I was with God.
Yeah. Right.
So, when is my soul satisfied? Okay? At what point is it satisfied? So, I'm giving two examples here. First, the Instant Pot. Anybody got an Instant Pot?
Come on now.
Love the Instant Pot, right? So, this lid, right, on the Instant Pot, when you put it on, I grew up with a crock pot where you just drop the crock pot lid on.
Right.
Don't ever pick it up once you've started it. You have to start over, right? But with the Instant Pot, this thing, when you lock it in, it's like, you know, it tells you that it's locked in.
Lock it in.
Right? You know when it's working. And that thing takes forever sometimes. If you don't get it just right, you gotta like line that joker up.
Yeah.
But my other thing I wanted to talk about is the thing I'm gonna milk bathroom plumbing for the rest of my life. If you know about my bathroom stories, oh my goodness, remodeling my bathroom, I'm gonna get the most out of this. All right. So there was a situation when my dad and I are remodeling my bathroom. And I live in a condo, so my plumbing, I can't get up under it, so I gotta like go in through the closet behind it in order to install the drain, right? So this is the drain right here, where the where your bathtub would be, and the drain is right here. So we're putting everything together. This bathroom is taking me forever. It took me 6 years to finish my bathroom. So I went in and we finally got. Yeah, I know, it's funny, right? We go in and we go to my dad and I go to lock in the drain, and he's like, we got it. I'm like, yes, finally, right? So we get all the plumbing, all sealed up, all glued up. All right, we're gonna test it. I'm gonna test it tomorrow when I get home from work. I get home from work and I open up, you know, the access panel behind the wall, and I just sit in the closet and turn on the water. And I watch it rain into my downstairs neighbor's ceiling. And I cried.
As anyone would.
But we thought we had it locked in. I thought it was satisfied. I thought it was satisfied until it was tested.
Yeah, that's good.
I have to ask myself these things, like having too much of something. Right? We think we need more. We need more. But having too much is what keeps us unsatisfied. What do I have too many? Do I have too many shoes? Do I have too many streaming services?
Come on now.
Do I have too many apps on my phone? Do I have too many phone cables? Really? Do I have too many coffee mugs? Do I have too many distractions? And I have to ask myself this a lot. Do I have too many opinions?
Come on, bro.
What's keeping me from being unsatisfied? What do I want more of? Do I want more money? Do I want more time? Do I want more accomplishments? More recognition? Or do I want more peace? Do I want more joy, more self-control, more love? This is the kind of stuff I was experiencing today when I had absolutely nothing on my plate. I had no external, external encouragement, like financially, or people calling me, telling me I'm awesome, or anything. But just because I was with God,
Nice.
I experienced that peace and that joy.
Come on, Jack.
That's what satisfies my soul.
Yeah, that's great.
So, but also, do I have people in my life asking me, right? Do you think that's a good idea? Because this rich fool, he did not have people in his life asking him.
That's true.
Do you think that's a good idea? So the answer to your question for me is, do I have people in my life? Heck yeah, I do. I have people in my life, and this is the kind of face I get from Kyle a lot when I'm like,
Why don't you get a picture like Ben of you?
Because Ben took that picture.
but having, guys, I'm going to leave that up there for a minute. Having those relationships, having people in your life asking you, do you think that's a good idea?
Come on, Martin.
And asking that question a lot of people, do you think that's a good idea? Grant, what do you think? Brian, what do you think? Martin, what do you think?
Yeah.
Kyle, what do you think? Ben, what do you think? You know, running it through people before I've even made my own decision about I'm going to tear down my barns and build bigger ones. I'm going to be like, so I got this bumper crop of wheat. What do you think I should do with it? But God said to him, we'll go back to the parable. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded of you. Then you will get what you. Then who will get what you prepared for yourself? You fool. That's God's response to this guy. We're like, this guy is perfectly. It's perfectly reasonable. What he's doing is perfectly reasonable. But God's response is, you're a fool. So there's this word. I love it. Right in the Greek. So
Good thing I didn't bet.
Euphreno. Okay? Euphreno. This is the word for where it says eat, drink, and basically eat, drink, and be merry. Eat, drink, and rejoice. Right? So Euphreno is this word of, it has to do with the diaphragm. Because you're, yeah. Right? Like that's the word. So it means to rejoice. It's a sigh of relief. It's like a release, a relaxing of the diaphragm, right? So because then we have this word, aphron, okay? And that's the word for fool. So because the verses happen like eat, drink, and be merry, and then God's like, you fool. This is like a play on words. It's like a Greek pun, all right? Because like this guy thinks, I'm experiencing aphreno, but God is like, you are ephron, which means full. Because phron means diaphragm, okay? So like the ephreno, the relaxing of the diaphragm, right? But phron meaning, but aphron means you have no diaphragm to expand. So you are full, you have no reason to relax. Because what this guy had done is he had taken the concept of Ecclesiastes 8:15. It says, so I commend the enjoyment of life, because there is nothing better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and be glad. Then the joy will accompany them in their toil all the days of their life. God has given them under the sun. Notice it's God who has given them that. He didn't take that into account. He's like, well, I'm just going to eat and drink and be glad. But it was the life that God has given us. We're His. Everything that we have and do is His. And I think we got to be mindful that we don't forget that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in a horror movie, right? Where there's a dude running from the killer. You know, and then he runs and he goes and he gets in the house, he locks the door, he's relieved, right? There's that Ephraimo, right? Only to realize the killer's no longer with him.
Ah, he's right behind him.
Be mindful that this isn't us, that we lock the door thinking that we're safe when the very thing that's going to kill us is in the room with us. This is how it'll be with whoever stores up things for themselves but's not rich towards God.
Yeah.
So what made this guy a fool? He wasn't rich towards God.
Yes.
Being mindful of how we're rich towards God. Super, super important, folks. What did God want him to do with the grain? I love this quote from Augustine. It says, the bellies of the poor were safer storerooms than his barns. God is looking at how are we using the resources for his glory? How are we using the resources that he gives us to take care of people? Being stewards. Now, what does that look like? Being a steward is when you take care of something that doesn't belong to you. First, we need to recognize that our money, our time, our lives are not our own.
Yes.
Do I have a budget? If I'm a good steward of God's money, do I have a budget?
Come on, Chad.
A good steward of God's time, do I have a schedule? Right? Am I just letting life happen to me? Am I a victim of my own life? But when I have a budget, making sure I have things like savings, rent, groceries, clothing, retirement, insurance, vacations, and going out. Making sure I'm keeping track of that, but the problem with this even, it's all for me.
Yeah.
Right? My retirement, my clothing budget, my groceries, mine. But even when we budget, how can I be rich towards God? With regular contributions to church, special missions, benevolence, gifts, looking out for families in need, organizations like World Vision and Hope Worldwide, right? Like making sure that we put that in our plan. And those are a number of ways in which we can be rich towards God. Another thing is just ask people. Ask spiritually minded people you trust. This is what my budget looks like. This is how I spend my money. How can I be rich towards God? So back to Jason. So I picked Jason up and he's telling me this story. And I started asking Jason some questions. So what's your brother's current situation? Well, he's having a hard time finishing school. He's got 3 kids at home. And he just lost his job. So adding that extra couple $100 in his pocket was probably super helpful. And so mom got all her money back. Well, she got her money back, right? And so, but she gave me that money. I asked Jason, I was like, why do you think she gave me that? Oh, just so the 3 of us could go be together and have some fun. I'm like, were you guys together? Yeah. Did you guys all have fun? Yeah. How much money you got in your pocket? $30. Did you have that? Is that $30 that you didn't have when you got here? Yeah. So you got $30. Do you need the money? Just so you know, Jason's like 51 and about to retire. Okay. His wife is a PhD and is a professor at 2 universities. Right. They have 1 car and they live in a small apartment in Atlanta. They're doing fine. Okay. So, but to know these things, I'm like, did you do what your mom wanted? Yeah, absolutely. I think she was very happy with the way things turned out. Sounds like a successful endeavor to me. And if we have that same attitude with God, like when we're like, well, what does God want? I have this money. How does God want me to use it? I have this time. How does God want me to use it? I have my attention. How does God want me to use it? Being mindful of that. And that's the ways in which we need to make sure we're being rich towards God. So folks, this week and every week, I want you to be on your guard against all kinds of greed. And remember, those insatiable desires, be on the lookout for those and be rich towards God. Thanks for listening.